Everybody see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, who is this? This is Chris. Yeah? Where you at?
Hi. Yeah.
Okay, so you clip these out. Did you I don't see anywhere where you use the clone tool. You there?
Oh yeah. Hi. Oh yeah, I forgot to use the clone tool.
Okay, we got to use that clone tool because we're going to use it a little bit in the next exercise. Yeah.
Yeah.
The clips are good. Like this. What did you use to clip this roundish thing?
The lasso thing.
How did you get the round part? Let's see. Because that's pretty smooth. How'd you get it with the last? Which lasso tool? The Polygon lasso tool?
Yeah.
Did you make like little clips on it, like little?
Yeah. The dots.
Okay, so when you're doing this kind of thing, and this is kind of what I want to start to getting to, is right tool for the right job, right?
Yeah.
So if I'm getting into a more complex shape, I'm probably going to go here to my pen tool because, you know, I can really control these curves and everything. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And when we get to the next thing we're going to do, that's going to become important. Then I can I hold my command, I get the white arrow, and I can pull that over a little bit, and I can kind of dial it in. Okay, this curve is too long for me to do this with, but I've got to get you guys going with the pen tool. Watch, it's going to bow out. So now I got to go white command, white arrow tool. Oops, see, now it's going to both of them. So now what I got to do, I got to use the option, get my corner tool, and so on and so forth, right? You've got to kind of get used to those two little, the corner tool, the pen tool, and your Bezier curves, which is, you know, your handles. Does that make sense?
I think I got confused with the lasso and the pen tool.
Yeah, no, that's totally fine.
Yeah.
What we're trying to do here is I'm just trying to get you, I'm always this, you know, some of you have some experience in Photoshop, but some of you don't. And I think when you first start in Photoshop, maybe this is just me, I don't know. I think it's confusing, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is confusing. It's just, to me, it's not an intuitive program. Illustrator is a much more intuitive program. Okay, does that make sense though?
Yeah.
And then, you know, I just want to see something cloned out, right? So we would go grab our clone tool here. I think they call it the stamp tool now, clone stamp. And again, I can adjust my brush size right there, right here with size, or with my brackets, right, left brackets. And then I'm going to sample where I want to sample from, or I'm going to option click it, and then it's going to put that wherever I want to put it. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you understand that process, like the pen tool and this and the clone and all that?
Yes.
Who am I looking? This is Chris. Chris, do you get that?
Yeah.
Okay, because I don't want, here's what I don't want to do. We have breathing room, okay? And I believe in letting the class breathe a little bit. I do not believe in step-by-step stuff, so I don't want to move forward until I know everybody's sort of at least understanding it. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't want you guys getting a step behind and going, well, wait a minute, because then I personally, I hate that feeling. I've been in classes where I don't know what the hell I'm doing, or jobs where I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I can't stand that feeling, right?
Yeah, I just forgot about the clone tool part. I just knew about like us moving around parts in the image.
And if we get a chance to that, I'm going to start talking about the next exercise using basically these tools. I also want to talk a little more about overlays and things like that today, okay? And I made a couple of notes on my thing, but I'm not going to make big leaps yet. I want to wait till we get this next exercise done, okay? Does that make sense?
Yep.
I'm trying to put it forward. Right there. I'm just looking at my notes. Okay, so let's just keep going through these. Okay, Chris, do you have any questions?
No, I get it. Yeah.
Where's Isaac? Am I missing Isaac?
Don't see him on the list.
I don't either. Let me see the participants list. Hang on.
He's here. Isaac Sanchez.
Yes.
Oh, there he is. He's got the Kermit.
Isaac.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
A little bit. You're real quiet.
I can't hear him at all.
Hmm.
The volume of my mic.
Is he responding?
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
just really, really quiet.
Let's go into the chat then. Talk to me through the chat then. Or adjust your mic or whatever it is.
If I adjust my mic,
Can hear you a little bit now.
is that better?
A little bit. Okay. All right. So you cloned this back here up here, right?
A little bit, and then I cloned a little bit, and then I decided to use the brush tool as well.
Oh, okay. That's fine. Hey, do you have a little bit of experience in Photoshop?
A little bit, not much.
Okay. And so this building went over here, correct?
Yep.
Now, ideally, I'd want all this filled in, but I don't really care so much on this first thing. It's not that big a deal. As long as you're sort of satisfying what I'm asking to do. Did you use the pen tool anywhere?
Yeah,
Where at?
on the edges of the building.
Oh, this one here?
Yeah.
Have you used it before?
The pencil, yeah.
Okay. Do you have any questions on this?
No, I'm relatively good.
Okay, good. Make sure you guys, whenever you hit walls with this, that you talk to me about it in class or when you're having problems with it. Does that make sense? And when we get to more complex projects, that's really going to become important because they're going to be a bigger project. And I don't want you going, I mean, this class isn't too bad because we meet 2 days a week, but if you're sort of rolling and you're getting into it and everything and you go, oh, and you hit a wall, make sure, I want to keep you moving. So make sure you email me or something and go, hey, I'm having so, because it'll probably take me 5 minutes to figure it out. Right. I want to keep you guys moving. Okay. All right. So
I have
good.
a question about the brush tools, or do we learn that a little bit later on?
No. What do you want? What do you want to know?
I want to learn how to like make brushes, because I remember you mentioned like you have a soft brush tool to make like the background look like it fit in better when you like painted.
Like a softer brush, you said?
Yeah.
Okay, a softer brush. If you go up here, because we remember when we grab a brush, there's it's our control bar, right? You guys can see that?
Yes.
Then I drop here and I can go in your general brushes, which is just what comes with Photoshop. So here's a hard round. Let's just take that for now, right? Or you've got a soft round, you got all these different brushes. But once I do that, let's say that I go, okay, right now, I want to soften up this little edge right here. So I want to use a softer brush, correct?
Correct.
But if I want to use, or this is a harder edge, I'm sorry. If I want to make that softer, I come right down here to hardness and I just back it out. So let's go all the way to soft. And now you can see it's a much softer edge, correct?
Yeah.
So just for that simple, I'm going to show you how to make custom brushes later and reactive brushes. That's way further down the line. And brushes that just do a lot of the work for you. But just as far as like softness or hardness, it's just up there. And you do the same thing by going, I think it's, hang on. So look at my brush up here. Look at my brush icon right here. I'm holding shift and left or right bracket, and that will do the same thing automatically. Okay. It'll just make it harder or softer. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And then those same brackets, if I don't hold shift, if I hold right, my brush is going to get bigger. If I hold left, my brush will get smaller. Okay. But that's the same tool that's sitting right here, size and hardness level. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. And then, by the way, your opacity is right here. And this is important because a lot of times I'll use opacity here in the, let's put another layer here. Right here in my layers palette, there's this opacity thing, but then I'm lowering the opacity of the whole layer. So if I use this, let's unlock this. If I use this opacity, it's going to just make the whole image less opaque. Does that make sense? Which a lot of times I don't want to do. I want my brush. So let's take our brush here. And let's just grab this. And I go, okay, so that's opaque, 100%, right? But if I go right here to my opacity on my brush, I can lower just the brush and lower my opacity without lowering the whole layer. Does that make sense?
Right.
Which again will become important as we move on. You're gonna hear me talk a lot about overlays. I'm gonna talk about them a little more today because they're gonna become really important. Okay, this is Jen. Where you at? You in here?
Can you guys hear me?
I don't see them.
She's just below Isaac.
Okay, Jen, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so what moved here? Oh, okay, you put some umbrellas and stuff up here on the roof and this sign, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. And then what building did you move?
So I cut out the center, the right side building, and I placed it over to the right. And then I shrunk the right side building and added an extra one behind it. I don't know if
Did you add this one here? I can't remember.
no. So go to the center part.
This
Yeah,
one?
the right side, the two buildings right there.
Oh, right there?
Yeah, no. The big brown
Oh,
building.
this one right here.
Yeah, that one, and then also to the right of that, I added.
Oh, okay. Okay, the good thing about that is I'm asking that question, which means you did a pretty good job on it, right?
That's good.
Have you used Photoshop before?
I've never. This was a lot of trial and error.
But you're understanding everything with the selection tools, correct?
Yeah, I guess just playing around with it a lot helped me.
Yeah, you have to. You have to go in and that's really important. Yeah, I'm asking you to do this, that, and the other, but like I would probably make a copy of this file and I just tear things up and just go, oh, that's what that tool, I get it. That's what this selection's for, that, blah, 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 blah. And then do your project or whatever. Does that make sense? Which sounds like that's what you did.
Yeah.
And then did you clone these bushes and stuff here?
Yeah. So I cloned the bushes from the bottom trees and the
Yeah.
umbrellas at bottom, and then I removed the Wells Fargo sign and
Oh
removed
yeah, right on.
the center windows, and then added the flags.
Right on, man. That's great. And then how did you get this sign in perspective?
So I went ahead and cut it out using the was it the Lasso?
Uh-huh.
And I had to skew it a bit.
So did you go up into edit and skew and that kind of thing?
I just double clicked and then it just gave me like all these options. So that's for like generally like the basics of like the tools, I got it, but I saw that there was more options, so I could start playing with that.
Okay, good. That's good. That's great. I don't have any complaints. And by the way, you guys, a lot of what we're doing here, because again, normally I'd be talking about the stuff and then we'd just be working in class, which doesn't really work on Zoom as well. So we're kind of coming back and doing that process, and now we're starting the process. So it'll kind of work out the same way time-wise, because now we've sort of started it. But these things you're going to hit with these exercises. I'm expecting you to hit problems and things like that. And then we can come back in here and talk about them. Okay. So these exercises, I just want you to get them done to the best of your ability. Then if you have a question, like I said, during the week, talk to me, or we come in here and we'll go over it in here. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I don't expect, and again, you guys usually always get it way better than I did when I started doing this. When I started doing this, it was brain surgery to me. I was like, I just don't get this at all. So I always just assume everybody else will think of it that way. And most of the time they don't. They're usually a lot more on top of it than I am or was. Okay, I just got Molina. Where you at?
Right.
Oh, there you are. Make sure you put your full name in there, just so I know, you know, I mean, just for the sake of me marking it down, you can put your last name, that's fine. But in class, I'd just like to know so I can start getting to know people's names. Okay, so you moved the Wells Fargo building, right?
Yeah.
And then where did you clone?
Thing at
Oh.
the far left. And I got that whole
Oh,
building and I had
okay,
to clone
yeah.
half the building.
Oh yeah, you put it up here.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. You have prior Photoshop stuff?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Okay, I don't have any. You got any questions?
No, not really.
Okay, so anybody has prior Photoshop stuff, bear with me because I have to start this from the ground up. Okay. We will get in some kind of cool stuff next week, I think. You think you guys will probably be far enough along we can get in some cool stuff. Okay, who's this?
This is my Pingo.
There you are. Okay, your name here. Oh, that's right. You sent me an email, right?
Yeah, Gloria, the English name.
Okay, because it's I gotta. Okay. So what did you move here?
I moved this one, this small building. On the left.
On the left. This one?
So yeah,
Oh.
yeah, the white color rectangle.
I'm seeing this one.
I move back to the on the middle, low middle. Yeah, right.
Oh, here?
Yeah, and a little bit the right
Oh, over here. Oh,
and the down. Yeah.
and then what did you clone?
It's I didn't do clone. I just put it back here. Move
Okay,
this small.
we need to use that clone tool, correct?
Say it again.
We need to use that clone tool.
Clone tool. Yeah, I use the rectangle and the select, then
Go ahead.
move the small building to here. Yes, I
Okay.
need to do a lot of catch up.
Yeah, when we do these, I've got to have you guys do what we're assigned to do because otherwise you're not learning the tools I want. And then if you move on to the next thing, you're going to start getting behind. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Because what I'm trying to do is get you to just take these simple, small group of tools. We'll very quickly advance pretty quickly because I'm trying to just lay down a foundation in here. But if you don't do those, I'm trying to find the problems now before we get into a bigger project and you start finding out you have problems with that. Does that make sense?
Okay.
All right. So make sure that we cover the tools that we're covering because I want to make sure you know the pen tool or at least have an understanding of how to use it. It takes you a while to get good at it. And in this case, a couple of selection tools and the clone tool. I think that was the basis of what I wanted to do. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Do you have any questions? Go ahead.
So I had a question regarding like the layers, because I know once you go back, you can't move forward. Is that correct?
No, you can move. You mean if like you go Command Z out of it?
Yes.
No, you can go up here to edit. And right here it says redo. You see that?
Yeah. Oh, okay. Got it.
And another thing, by the way, I was going to talk about this anyway. Under your windows, you also have, let's do a bunch of just stupid moves here. We'll do that. Then I want to go more opaque. I want to do that. Then I want to switch colors and do that. And I want to, so if I go to up here to Windows, because all our palettes live in Windows, correct?
Yes.
So I'm going to go here to history. And here's our timeline of our history. Okay. So if I've made a series of lousy moves, then I might come here and just go, and I can go back and go all the way back to just opening the file. Does that make sense?
Got it. Yes.
So, or you can go here now, go up to edit, and I can go redo brush tool. Redo brush tool, and I can put them all back that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Photoshop now, I think it defaults to quite a few. I think it might be 25 Command Z's. It used to just do one unless you went into the preferences and told it to do more. But I think it defaults now to some, I think it's like 25 or something. Does that make sense? Which is actually kind of nice. So you can just bump back out quite a ways. Okay. And all right, we talked about this. You have any questions, Gloria?
I'm fine right now,
Okay.
and I'm glad you have a YouTube. I can rewatch the.
Yeah. This
that's
one will
nice.
go up, every time they'll go up. The only time they won't go up is maybe if I don't really say anything, I guess. That's probably never going to happen. Okay. I'm going to go here. Okay, so you took these out, right?
Yeah, I had a little bit of trouble with the pen tool.
Everybody does.
Yeah.
In what way?
Like I was making too much dots, I think.
Too many.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
Making,
so
like, trails of it.
Yeah. And then you're just going to get, then it's the same thing really as using the Polygon Lasso tool, right?
Yeah.
Then you're doing this, right?
Yeah.
Which is kind of defeating the point. The Polygon Lasso tool is great for doing that. By the way, Command D, and I'll deselect, or under select, deselect, right? But what you got to get used to, and this is the trick with the pen tool, you got to get used to this idea of like you click and then you jump over to where you want to make that curve and you pull it. And then I can go, a command and adjust it, or I can go option and make a hard point. Right.
Okay.
And it's just command or option. Option's your corner tool and command is your white arrow tool, so you can adjust the handles, right?
Yeah.
But you got to get used to that sort of thinking ahead a little bit and going, this is how I want to make my curves. And then again, now here's another thing. I don't know if I talked about this. Well, I have talked about this. So we go back to path, because that's not a selection, right? Go back to paths. Oops, that's my history. And here's something I really want to make clear, you guys. We're command clicking on the thumbnail and it makes the selection. Okay, I want you to remember that because it's something that's going to go across a lot of things. So if I go, let's fill this with color. So we can go up to edit, fill, foreground color. It should default to that. And I'm going to hit OK. And now, oh, wait a minute. I want it on its own layer. Hang on. And we're going to talk a little bit about something else to do with this in a minute. So let's fill this. And let's just turn off this layer for a second. So now this is an object that's not locked to anything. It's floating on a transparent layer. Does that make sense? Yes?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so if I want to reselect this because I've already got this, this shape is sitting there by itself. So Photoshop reads that very clearly, okay? So if I go, and remember we just command clicked the thumbnail image in paths to create a selection, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so we're going to do the same thing now in a layer. I'm going to go command, I'm going to click the thumbnail, and it reselects it as a selection. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Now, how that's not going to work is if I have this, let's say that I had made this and it's merged onto, oops. Let me turn this back on. Let's deselect it. And let's say that these two things, I'd done it on the same layer. So they're now one layer. Does that make sense? Look. So now they're confused. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now if I go here and I command click the thumbnail, it's just going to select the whole thing because it's not going to see that blue thing as an object by itself. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. And I want to talk about saving selections a little bit today. I mean, it's really simple. Okay. So the trick with the pen tool, just so you know, it's practice. Okay. Usually people get pretty good in here because we're gonna have to use it quite a bit. And it's just, you absolutely have to learn to use a pen tool, not just for Photoshop, because it's a universal tool across all sorts of softwares. Okay.
Oh, okay.
And it's just going in, and by the way, go in and play with it. Just open up a document and go in and play with it if you want to, you know, just get used to how you make the curves, how you make straights. You can hold shift and get straights and so on and so forth. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So you cut those out. Did you use the clone tool anywhere?
I didn't get to use it. I cut out that building and then I changed opacity in the back and then kind of merged the two buildings together. But
Oh yeah, I see that.
that's all I did.
Okay, all that's good, but I need the clone tool. I need to make sure you know how to use this.
Okay.
And again, okay, so for now, we're going to start talking about non-destructive work. Okay. And Photoshop's gotten better and better at this. Non-destructive means that if I make a change, I can undo the change. Okay. If I'm working on this particular thing and I change the levels on it on the layer with the cityscape, once I save that and come back to that file, I can't undo it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's destructive editing. And we're going to start talking as we move along. I don't want to add too many things into this mix yet. We'll start talking about non-destructive editing. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Because we always want to be able to go back and change. Because if you're doing something for a client, if you think that they're not going to make changes, you're out of your mind. Even if it doesn't need any changes, they're going to make changes. It's just the way it is. Okay. Unless you have a great creative person you're working with or something. Okay, do you have any questions? Oh, so here, what I was going to say, so when you're using the clone tool for now, you have to be on the layer that you're cloning, which is this background layer. I use a soft brush usually for this. Why? Because if I use a hard edge brush, look what happens. Let's clone this right here. Look how gross that looks. You see that?
Yeah.
So let's go back and now let's soften up this brush. And now it's getting a nice smoother transition. Does that make sense? Now, another thing I do a lot, if I'm cloning like up in this sky, let's say I'm going to put some of this in here. This is actually working fine, actually. Okay, see how dark that is? A lot of times when I'm editing this stuff, again, all these tools, if you notice, Photoshop thinks of them like a brush. So it applies the brush tool set to your tools that you're using. In this case, the clone stamp tool, okay? So I can go here and I can adjust all that, but I can also go over here and adjust my opacity again. And I tend to, when I'm working over these things, see how that opacity feels more natural now? Because I'm building it up. I'm not just going in with a hard color at 100% opacity. That'll come in handy later. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But what I want you to start thinking about as we start moving through these simple tools is things like that. Right tool, right job. That's a little too much. It's just too much. I'm a big believer in whether it's traditional painting or drawing or whatever, and building something up. Okay. It just tends to work better. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Do you have any questions?
Mm-mm.
So moving forward, start playing around with that. Okay, who's this? This is Jessica. Where are you at?
Hello.
I've had you before, haven't I, in class?
Yes, it was the sketching for animators in illustration.
Oh, okay. The Saturday class.
Yeah. At the beginning of quarantine.
Hmm?
At the beginning of quarantine.
Did you do good?
I think I managed.
Did you do good, Mike? Poor girl.
I can't remember every single piece. I just had somebody this morning ask for a letter of recommendation. I remember the name, but I couldn't remember the work. I had to go look at it. Okay, who's it? Okay, so this one's yours. Okay, so you played around in Photoshop a little bit before, correct?
No,
Oh, really?
I was just kind of going at it.
What's the DJ thing on your desk?
The DJ thing, that's my keyboard. And if it looks like I'm not paying attention, this is actually my tablet. I'm signed in on Zoom on like my.
Oh, that's fine. You look like you're paying attention. That's fine.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so you added in these clouds. Was that painted?
So I don't know what was going on with the clone tool. Reason like when I would try and sample, the actual like target was like way off, and it would just like I would try and sample one thing, and what it was doing was like cloning the whole image. Like when I would try and move it, it would like the sample would move.
Okay, the only thing I can think
So I
of.
kind of fudged it, but it's not working right.
Okay, so the only thing, I mean, from what you just described, the only thing I can think of was the brush like this big.
It wasn't.
Okay, and then you were going over what to whatever you were going to sample. I'm going to sample. Oops, hang on. Let me put it on the stamp tool. And going over here or wherever, and going Option, click, and then coming over here and putting it back in. Did you do something like that?
Yes, and I didn't know how to not do that.
What do you mean?
So.
Well, I want to
I
make
think
sure.
I have to keep playing with it.
I want to make sure that I get to the bottom of it because I don't want you. I want to make sure you understand this tool. Does that make sense?
Right. So it would be like if I tried to sample that and then I moved over to like where the furthest building was.
Yeah.
Instead of sampling that building, it would start sampling the building closest to it.
Okay, that it feels like to me like the way you're setting your sample point is probably wrong.
Probably.
Okay, so it's Option and then click with the mouse, then go over here and you'll get that. See my crosshairs right there on the left?
Yeah.
It'll show where I'm sampling from. Does that make sense? So just play
Yes.
around with it a little bit today. Yeah?
Okay, I will.
And that's, by the way, that's a really, I shouldn't say it's a tricky tool in the sense that it's one of those dead giveaways of people who don't know what they're doing. There's a really kind of ugly, gross thing that clone stamping will do if you don't use it correctly. I mean, you could totally tell they used it. Like if I clone those clouds up in the sky or something and I keep repeating them, it's like, it's totally obvious I did that. Does that make sense? So I might kind of repeat them, then I might go in, and I'll show you guys this later. I might go in with the smudge tool and kind of soften them and reshape them a little bit so that they look different. But it gives me a nice starting point for my clouds. Does that make sense? Okay. And we'll get more and more into that. We'll get more and more into how we're using these things as we move forward. Okay. Okay. And then you clone that, or you move this building. You move this one, this pyramidal. How'd you do the pyramidal thing?
I used the like pointed lasso tool, and I just took a sample out of the that glass building on like the middle right.
Did you have to actually pinch it at the top?
I just like manually.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, good. And then you used your clone, you used the clone up here. So everything, what about the pen tool? Did you use that at all?
So I did, but my system had crashed and I forgot to redo it.
All right, as long as you did it, I'm cool with that. Again, I expect you guys to get these exercises done, and I expect you to you know, play with the tools that I'm asking you to play with. But I keep the exercises fairly casual. Okay, I'm not. If I sit here and I go, give me a bitchin' cityscape that looks all futuristic, we're going to spend 3 weeks on an exercise. I don't want to do that. I want to spend a week on a solid project where you're bringing all these tools to that project. Okay. So I'm not really concerned with design or anything at this point. So just go back and play with that clone tool. And on Wednesday, I want to check back in and make sure that you kind of got it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then if not, maybe we'll try this screen share thing in here and see if I can look at your screen.
Okay.
Okay. And then, and what'd you say about the pen tool? Oh, you did use it, but you didn't have it. That's fine.
Yeah.
Pen tools, you know, again, I always think it's gonna be super hard. Usually everybody gets it way faster than I did. Can you guys give me 2-second break here for a second? I gotta grab something. Yeah? Literally just
Yes.
a minute.
1,000.
Hey.
Two.
Why is this? Oh, there. All right. It's Irene. All right, Irene, where are you? Where'd you go? Oops.
I'm here.
I can't hear you. Can you guys hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Now
Oh,
I can.
okay.
Okay, so what'd you do here?
I cut out the middle piece.
Yeah, I see that.
And
You clone this up
yes.
here. It looks like a little
and
bit.
then
Yeah.
on
Okay.
the right side, I made like a little water canal way.
Oh, I
with,
see that.
yeah. No.
Did you just make a shape and fill it?
Yeah, that's
Okay,
it.
good. And then what about the pen tool?
The pen tool I use for the canal because it's like curvy.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so how much have you done in Photoshop?
I've done a decent amount, I think. There's like little things that I don't really know.
Okay, did you have any problems with any of this?
No, it's fairly easy. The clouds took forever.
Yeah, that's the trick. That clone tool, getting a handle on that clone tool is a trick, right?
Yeah.
And but
Making
as
it-
we're moving forward, like, okay, I'm probably if I was doing something, I don't know, correcting something or changing something or whatever, I'm probably never going to 100% just use the clone tool. I'm probably going to use the clone tool in relation with some low opacity brushes and soft brushes and some smudge techniques and different. I'm going to use a lot of different combined things, which we'll get to later, right?
Mhm.
And then there's people that are just, I don't know. We used to have this guy at Imagineering. He did this is a long time ago. He did just Photoshop stuff. And he would send us these like emails with, they were sort of like, what do you call that? Like leave behinds, like, hey, remember me? I'm over here. And he would do these crazy Photoshop mashup kind of things that it was really hard to tell that he even did them, but they were so outrageous you knew he did. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's pretty cool though.
Yeah, and it's weird because it's like I always say that I was thinking about this last night. To me, there was two ways, and there still is. There's two ways to approach Photoshop. And to me, one was Photoshop jocks who were really technicians in Photoshop, but not necessarily all that artistic. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And they set up their files very cleanly, and it was very just technical. Okay. And I got to find this old style guide. I have a style guide from, I think it was the first Hulk movie or something. We were doing something for it. And it was like that. And I remember it got so sort of Photoshop jockey that it really wasn't, it was really weird. It was almost hard to work with the files because I'm going, I just need this bunch of rocks over here. And there, you go to pull the rock and it'd be a layer and a layer and a layer and a layer and a layer. And you're like, why do you need 45 layers on those rocks? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the answer was they're not painters or illustrators. They're just, who knows how they're putting it together. And then there's the approach that I had, which was I came from traditional and then I just moved into Photoshop, doing Photoshop sort of the way I do traditional. Okay. I'm teaching you guys a little bit of a combination of both, because I do want you guys to work smart, let Photoshop do what it does, and also bring your technical, art skill set to it. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
But I want you to have both. I don't want you to just be a jock, because it kind of limits you. Okay.
Yes.
You have any questions?
Nope, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, where are you at, Kayla? Am I saying that right?
Yeah, it's Kayla.
Okay, so you pulled this out. You put a color behind it, it looks like, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did you drop that on the layer underneath?
Yeah, it's the background one.
And then it looks like you did something here, like is that where you cloned it?
Yeah, I did a mix of the clone and the brush tool.
Okay, that's great. And then is this the pen tool, this curve?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
yeah.
Great. Did you have any problems with it?
I didn't really have any problems. I was just kind of playing around.
Okay, good. That's what I want you to do.
Yeah, I did have a question about
Sure.
the Polygon Lasso though.
Yeah.
For the Wells Fargo building, because that's the building I used it on,
Yeah.
since it has all those little edges that you have to go
Yes.
around. If you make a mistake, is there a way to undo the 1 point you put, or do you have to like redo it all over
Polygon
again?
doesn't really do that.
Okay.
Which is kind of weird. You're gonna very quickly see all the weird bugs in all this stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
In Photoshop, or Adobe in general, in my opinion, especially in the last, I don't know, maybe it's always been going on. I guess it has. They have a lot of weird little things that they do that they don't fix. Okay. And also they do weird things. Okay, so like, let's take this picture. I'm going to unlock this layer, and then if I want to resize this, I can go to Command T, right, which is transform, which I think is here. Yeah, free transform right there, which is just going to give you your box, right? So in most programs, you guys probably know this. If I'm going to scale something, I have to hold Shift, right? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So you'd hold Shift, but now in this version, I think they just did it in this version. If I hold Shift, it doesn't constrain, it does the opposite. It does like how it used to be if I did it holding Shift. And now I don't, and you guys need to know this. Now in Photoshop, you don't need to hold Shift. You just pick your corner and constrain, and it'll constrain it in proportion. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Say that
by
one
the
more
way,
time.
Go ahead.
Can you say that one more time for me?
Okay, so if I want to resize this image and keep the proportions, right?
Yes.
I don't have to do anything but I go Command T, which will just give me my box. And then I just have to grab this, don't hold Shift or anything, and just drag it, and it'll constrain on its own now. Does that make sense?
What?
Yeah, it used to be you had to hold Shift, you don't anymore.
Because when I do that, my Photoshop, it like ruins the constraints.
When you're just doing it without holding anything?
Yeah, let me try it right now, and then I'll get back to you.
And hit Command T to get your handles.
Keep going, and then I'll let you know what happens.
Okay, do you have any other questions? Oh, one other thing real quick, you guys. You don't have to remember this. We'll do it later. So if you notice, it's constraining from whatever corner I pull it from. Does that make sense? Yes?
Yeah.
If I hold Option when I do that, it will constrain from the center out, which comes in really handy when you don't want it to go over here and you have to resize it. You can just hold Option, and when you drag it, it'll go from the center out. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. It's just a hotkey thing, right? And by the way, all these things you're going to start using all the time, and then they're going to get cemented into your skill set. Does that make sense?
I have a question.
Sure.
If you made a selection of a part of the image, could you apply the same pre-transform, but just a specific part of the picture.
The only way I could do that, let's put this back. Like you're saying, like if it was this building or something, correct?
Right. You made the selection, for example, that building.
Okay, so let's just say I selected it.
Yes, the specific.
It's not really going to give me, it's not going to let me do that. The way I would do that is I would go Command X and would cut it. Oops. Got to get on the layer. Command X and then Command V.
Okay.
And then I could go.
Oh, I got it. Okay. I got it. But you have to add that command.
Command V up here. Or not Command V, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
X.
First to cut and after to move.
First you cut it and then you paste it.
Okay.
And it's going to automatically paste it onto a different layer. Okay. So if I do this, watch. If I go Command X and then V, it automatically puts it on its own layer.
Got it.
Okay.
If
I wanted it back on this layer, I'd have to select both of these and go here to my little flyout menu.
Right.
And go merge layers. And now they're on the same layer, which I would probably never do.
Yeah, I guess it's better without the flood in the image. Thank you.
Yeah, Mike, when I tried to do the Control T on my Photoshop, it squashes it and stretches it out. It doesn't constrain it.
If you're just doing it without holding Shift.
Right.
You have an old version of Photoshop?
No, it's the new one. It's the most recent.
Okay, so now do it. Did you do it holding Shift?
Yeah, and then if I hold Shift, it holds the constraints.
Okay, so maybe it might be set up like that in your preferences.
Okay, I'll double check.
I bet you that's what it is. They probably still give you the option. To be honest with you, because I got it, they did put it in there, and I think it's a default because mine just started doing it. And here's what I'm saying about Adobe that's kind of weird. So if I go into Illustrator, in my opinion, now across the Adobe suite, that should be true, that I don't have to hold Shift. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
But when I go into Illustrator, it's not true. Now, maybe I have the option and preferences to do that. And in InDesign, I haven't checked it, but it probably isn't true also. It's like, if you're going to make this, that's sort of a global design change, in my opinion. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and it's the same, it's like the same company, so it should be pretty equal, I think.
Photoshop, if you ever notice, I don't know if you know this, but like for the most part, their stuff feels, like I can move into Photoshop and into Illustrator and in Premiere and probably After Effects, all that stuff, and everything sort of feels like the same family, except when you get to InDesign. Then all of a sudden you're like, whoa, this doesn't seem at all like the rest of these. I'm assuming they bought that. I've never looked it up. I'm assuming they bought InDesign from someone or some company and then molded it to be what they want to be, because it just doesn't feel at all like the Adobe suite, and it's weird. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I've never tried it, so I don't know, but
maybe that's just me. I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't think it is, though. I mean, there are a lot of things in there where I'm like, why do I have to do this in such a weird way to get this to do this that I can do? Yeah, it's hard to explain, but it doesn't feel native to the Adobe suite to me.
Yeah.
And I bet they bought it.
It's very possible.
They developed obviously Photoshop and Illustrator because there was no Photoshop and Illustrator when they started. Okay, this is Taylor. Where are you at?
Right here.
Okay, so what do you think?
So I used the pen tool to copy out the corner edge of the middle building on the right side and moved it over to the left.
And this one right here, this building over on the right's completely changed, isn't it?
Mostly I took out the so there's another layer behind that, so I blocked out the far right side of that building and moved the street side over into it, and then used the clone tool on the clouds.
Yeah, you've used Photoshop before, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's obvious. Okay, how much experience do you have with it?
I took a class last year dealing with Photoshop and InDesign and stuff.
Oh, that was 100.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good class. It's just that you can't go as in depth into Photoshop.
We spent maybe a quarter of the class on Photoshop.
Yeah, that's about right.
And most of it was just trying to translate a lot of stuff from InDesign into Photoshop.
Yeah. Okay. What's your background? I mean, what's your major?
I'm actually a computer info systems major. I'm taking this because I used to really love doing art and stuff. So I figured I might as well see how I do in the digital aspect of it.
Wait, say your major again.
Computer info systems,
What does that mean?
cybersecurity.
Oh, cybersecurity. Okay. Okay? So this is what, because I love getting people from different disciplines in here. And what I always say about this is that, like, when you go into a career, and that one sounds like a technical career, and you're going in, you're going to do presentations or whatever, something where you need to organize information or present information, whatever. And if you have a background, like you just said, with some InDesign, some Illustrator, some of this, I always call things freebies. Okay. So you go in and all your colleagues, they go up and do their presentations in PowerPoint. It's boring. It's putting everybody to sleep. It looks amateurish. You have this secret weapon in your back pocket where you can put together a really good presentation. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And it really matters because it's all perception. So if you come in when you first get a job, and again, like all your colleagues are doing these horrible presentations, and you come in and you really rock a presentation, it sticks in people's minds. And it's not even about the presentation anymore. It's just like that person has their crap together. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So, take advantage of that. Okay. It looks to me like you're fine. Do you have any questions?
Mostly about the clone tool. I was wondering if there was a way to change the the shadows on it. So like if you're pulling from something a bit darker, is there a way to make it seem lighter if you're moving it into, like, say if I'm moving from like between the two buildings over to the far left up in the clouds?
That's where really your opacity is going to come in. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So if I go, let's take this dark value right here. And let's go to our clone tool. And I don't know, maybe I want to put something out here on the horizon or something, a little darker value. And I grab this and I go, well, that's not really, it actually looks kind of cool, actually. Let's take this or here. And it's just getting too dark or whatever. This is at 52%. That's why it's actually kind of working.
Mm-hmm.
So I would just go back over here and just, let's pull it way down. And it's going to obviously give me see how much lighter that value is.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that looks a lot better.
Yeah. So your opacity, especially with with anything, is going to become really important, because what people try and do in Photoshop is they try and match the color exactly. In Photoshop, it's fairly accurate, but it's not that accurate. Like if I go in and if I'm painting, and there's a and this is really important to me. Like if I have what's being read by the viewer is a black value, but I know that that's not pure black. It's got a lot of warmth in it. I don't want to lose that. Okay. And Photoshop is probably not going to be able to pick that up. It's just going to go, that's black. It's too nuanced. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So then that's when I'm going to have to really maybe, I'm going to probably have to sample that and then put that warmth back in it a little bit and tweak it a little bit. And the same thing with this. So I've always got to be adjusting my, and if I'm building up something, like I said before, if I'm using just my brush and I'm going in and building up those clouds a little bit, I'm not going to go at 100%. It's just going to be too boom. It's like, it's uncontrollable. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm always building things up, like I'm building them up. And I just think that's a better way to work. And then there's other things that people use, like photo bashing, all that. And we'll talk a little bit about that. I think photo bashing's a really good way to save time. I think learning to photo bash in if you're in a class and they go, this is a digital painting class, and they're photo bashing, that's not a good digital painting class. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. I lost you. Taylor.
Sorry, I was looking up what photo bashing is. I'm not quite familiar with that.
Yeah, I'll get into it later.
Okay.
It's basically just what it basically is you're taking photos. You're, like, let's say I go and most of the time it's sort of a starting point. And they'll take photos of, like, let's say some ruins, and I'll grab that and I'll put it in perspective and I'll just build it almost like a box. And then I'll start painting over it. And it gets me like started faster. And then we'll talk about this later, where we might create a brush that creates, you know, foliage or whatever, and I'll knock some of that in there, but I'm really just taking photos and I'm repurposing them to some illustrative vision or something. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
It's used a lot in concept art, and like people go, that's cheating, but what they don't really realize is that when you're making a painting for concept art, it's actually a design process, and you're just trying to show the design, and how you get there really doesn't matter. Okay. What does matter is that you know what you're doing, because you're not going to be able to sustain a career just doing photo bashing, and you're probably never going to get hired if that's all you're doing. Okay. Unless they're going to have you just texture things or something like that, which they probably wouldn't. Okay, let me check my folder. Okay, I've got 2 more in here. Wait, I think I already got one of them. Okay, so here, this is Samantha. I haven't gone through yours yet, right?
No, I was the one wondering if you could preview.
Okay, so just make sure you start getting these things in on time, correct?
Yeah, I tried. I turned it in like at like midnight. But I wasn't sure if you can see it or not, because I'm not really.
If it's there, I can see it.
Okay, so I resubmitted it. And
Yeah, I got it.
Okay.
All right, so you moved this and this, correct?
Yeah,
Where, did we use a clone stamp anywhere?
I did, but I was having difficulties, just like Jessica was mentioning. I was getting like a really dark, yeah, like if you can see, look at the blue building on top of there. If you zoom in, I was trying to clone that. It doesn't look.
Are you talking about here?
No, where I got the.
Oh, this right here.
Yeah, right there. If you zoom on the flat blue part where the cars are, no, go down where the cars.
Yeah.
Yeah, right there.
Oh, here.
Yeah, I was trying to clone there, but it was like very difficult for me.
So where did this? Wait, where did this? By the way, you guys, when you're on the zoom tool, you can just click and hold and drag in or out. Okay. And Z commands, I think it's just Z is your zoom tool.
That came from that flat blue part.
This part, right?
Yeah.
And then did you use the pen tool anywhere?
I wrote it down when I used. Yeah, I used a pen tool for that to get that building, to cut that building.
Okay. The clone thing, it sounds to me like you're probably sampling from the wrong spot and pulling it over, and then it looks out of place because it's like too dark a value or whatever. Does that make sense?
Kind of, yeah.
So like if
Mike,
I clone, go ahead.
I think I found out what it was. For some reason, I don't know if it's on everyone's Photoshop, but when I'm on the clone tool, in the upper toolbar, it automatically sets to aligned, and that's what was
automatically sets to what?
Aligned.
Okay, let me check that. Okay, I've got my clone tool here. Let me get rid of this.
Yeah, and then if you turn it off, it works fine.
Where? I'm not even seeing that. Where is that? Oh, aligned right here.
Right there.
Okay, that's weird. I've never thought of that. Let me check that.
Also take it out. Let me see.
Or at least that's what worked for me. Before it was doing something weird.
I'm gonna have to look that up. To be honest with you, I don't even know what that little thing is for. I'll look it
That
up.
didn't affect me when I did mine.
Yeah, I never had a problem with it either. My thing usually the thing that I find is that people don't really realize that, like, when I click or when I option click on this, you know, there's that little arrow over there that's showing you where it's sampling from.
See, that's what I was trying to do.
Yeah, sometimes it's like somebody might be sampling over here and they think they're sampling somewhere else, and
yeah, that's what I was getting like that green.
Yeah, so you were sampling from somewhere that you probably thought you were sampling somewhere else.
Yeah, how do I get control of what
You just go wherever you want to clone. So let's get rid of what I just did. Wherever you want to clone. So say I want to extend this building, then I'm going to go down here. Let's say I make it a little wider and I go option. See how it changes?
Mm-hmm.
Then I click my mouse. Then I go up to where I want to use it. See how it's floating right there? You can see it.
Yeah.
But when I click on this and start moving it, you can see that little crosshairs down below it, correct?
Okay.
That's telling me what I'm sampling from.
Okay.
And sometimes it is confusing, okay?
So I wasn't clicking option. That's
why.
Yeah, that's what it was.
So it had something in its memory that it was pulling from. You've got to establish what you want to clone because otherwise it doesn't know.
Yeah,
right?
that's why I kind of like gave up a little right there. If you zoom in, you can tell like the cars were all weird.
Okay, but this is exactly why I do it this way is I want you to come in here and we unlock what you had problems with, okay? So these exercises are really just designed to have a conversation around them, okay?
Yeah, because that was
designed for you to just get your hands wet. Go ahead.
I was also trying to clone the windows from the little brown building that I got this stamp out of. If you see, do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was trying to clone the little windows, but also that I was getting the same thing. So I just left that one alone.
Yeah, that's why you just didn't establish what you were cloning.
Yeah.
So that's no big deal. That's, But did you try the pen tool? Use the pen tool. Now I think you understand the clone tool. And then did you use any other selection tools?
I used I wrote it down. So the marquee tool for the
Oh, okay, good. Yeah.
Yeah, for the brown.
You're going to find out there's a lot of ways to make selections in here. We'll get into channel selections and all these kind of different things. And again, it just comes down to right tool for the right job. I'll show you a tool probably Wednesday and you're going to go, why didn't you show me that tool from the beginning? It's like, because if you go and just use automatic tools all the time, you really don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Those tools are really good and sometimes they're not. And it really comes down to the complexity of what you're looking at. Does that make any sense?
Mm-hmm.
So if I've got a lion in an African plain, and that African plain, if you ever noticed in the lion, they're kind of the same color. That's why, for good reason, they don't want to be seen. But when I go automatically tell the Photoshop to select that lion out, it's difficult for it to discern what is the lion and what's the background, okay? So they've got some tools in here now that work really well, but you're still usually going to have to go in and do some work on the edges and things like that. We'll get into that more later. So they can do the big picture thing for you, but you're still probably going to have to go in there and tweak them a little bit. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So just so I can get your suggestion for the blue top building.
Yeah.
What would I have, like, what would you have used instead of the pen tool?
For that one, I mean, you can use the pen tool for everything if you want. I don't have any complaints about that.
Oh, okay. I thought you said that one wasn't, I don't know, scratch that.
Yeah, it's just basically what I'm trying to get you to understand is like, oh, that's a very simple geometric shape. I can use the Polygon Lasso tool. Oh, that's a much more complex shape with complex curves and everything into it. That's going to be a pen tool. So really what we're doing is we're going from very simplistic up to very complex shapes. And what tools do we use to make those selections? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And later on, a little later, not that far on, we'll get into like if I'm doing a selection of, and this is what we'll do, if I'm doing a selection of this big scene, like farmland, and way out in the horizon, there's some trees back there and blah, blah, blah. And I want to change the sky and make the whole thing look like a sunset. I've got to get rid of that sky. Well, that's a very complex selection. I can't even do with a pen tool because as soon as I blow up those trees, they're going to get all out of focus because they're way in the back. So then we have to make another type of selection. Or if somebody's like on a white background, you see it all the time, like in fashion magazines, where they they separate the model out with every hair and everything, and then they put the masthead behind it and all that kind of stuff. And you're like, how are they making that selection? It's a channel selection, okay? So it's just always this like constant, you know, how do I select that? You know, you've got to solve these problems. I think a lot of people think with these types of programs that you're just going in and it does everything automatically for you. It doesn't. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, that's what makes you valuable. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't want these programs to go, hey, anybody can just walk in on the street and just do it. You know, you don't want that, because then that job becomes not valuable anymore.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions?
No, that was it. Thank you.
What's your major?
So I'm business management, but I'm really interested in like the entertainment design. So yeah, but my main goal, because I'm currently pregnant, so I'm trying to look at like different options. So I was looking at event planning. So I kind of wanted to get more into Photoshop just in case, you know.
Okay, again, it's a present, man. If you're going to go into event planning, if you're going to go into and business stuff, absolutely you need to have good presentation skills.
Yes. So
I can't tell you, and it still happens. And I'm shocked that this still happens. People will go, hey, we're going to do a presentation. And you go into the thing and they're using PowerPoint, and they're using the kind of stock templates in PowerPoint, which is literally like 3 words in Times Roman and 3 bullet points. And it just absolutely bores you to death. Like nobody cares what you're talking about. Does that make sense?
yeah.
And we had a guy years ago when I was creative director over this company. I forgot what he was doing. He was coming in, he's some vendor or something.
Mm-hmm.
And it's in a conference room, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And there's people, he was going on for like 45 minutes. It's the most boring, insanely boring presentation I've ever seen in my life. And literally there was 2 people in the room who had fallen asleep and were snoring. And he just kept plowing through it. It was totally bizarre to me. I'm like, dude, can you not read the room? Like you need to exit this presentation. It's a disaster. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get you. I definitely want to stand out. So I'm really interested in your class, because even I never dealt with Photoshop ever. So
you'll get pretty good at it by the time we're done if you just work hard.
Okay. Yeah.
Another program that and by the way, I never say to take a class because it's my class. I don't do that. I'll only tell you to take class if I actually think it's valuable, or I'll tell you to take somebody else's class. You might want to learn Illustrator too.
Illustrator.
And here's the reason. You can very quickly learn how to do like infographics and things in Illustrator. It's pretty simple.
Mm-hmm.
It's really simple actually. And if you add that to this, you're golden. You're going to make really good presentations. Okay.
Okay. Got it. Thank you for that.
I get a lot of people from different majors in here. Okay, who is this?
That one is mine.
Who's
Georgia?
Make sure your name's on it.
Okay.
Hang on, let me change. I want to change it because I can't grade it if I don't. You're Jordan around. Okay. Oops. Okay, so move that one, right?
Right. Actually, so I had like 3 questions with it, but I'll let you look at it first.
Okay, so you clone this up here, correct?
Yes, cloned it. I also used the brush.
Okay, great. And then, okay, move that. Did you use a pen tool at all?
I played around with it. I'm still kind of getting the hang of it, but I didn't use it for anything on this. You know, I just kind of was
okay. The next thing we're gonna do, which I should be able to get to today, you're gonna really need the pen tool. Okay, so it's gonna kind of force you to use it.
Sure.
Okay, what was the question?
So the first question would be, sometimes when I'm using the smudge tool, because I use that one as well, I'll go back to like a brush or something just to add a little bit of color, and then I go back to smudge. And when I'm using the smudge, it kind of doesn't work. You know, the preferences are selected. You know, the size, the hardness, but I'll be going over an area and it won't be working. You know, I have to click on it a couple times.
Were you on the same? Were you on your working layer? Because you might have been on a layer above it.
Yeah, no, I was on the working layer.
Oh, okay. So here's our smudge tool. So you've used Photoshop a little bit, right?
No, actually, no, it's the first time I'm trying it out.
So what made you think of the smudge tool?
I saw you do it on the video, you know, and it kind of, I think it works well for blending. I wanted to blend it because of the sunset. So
What we're going to get into later with the smudge tool, which is my favorite thing about it, is when I'm doing digital painting, I can get really nice brushwork using that tool. I have a set of them in here that I really love. Okay. Now, the only thing I can think of is right here under strength. So let's go on our layer. So there it is. This one's doing that, right?
Mhm.
If I put this, see if I put this all the way down. See, it doesn't do anything.
Oh,
See that?
okay.
So
Yeah.
what the strength does is and you're going to see this with a lot of tools. It might be called tolerance, might be called flow, might be called strength. I wish they would just call it strength across the board. But where you can adjust how much of that tool you get. Okay. And we'll get, and like sample all layers, we'll get into that in a little bit. Finger painting, all that. So it's not doing anything. So if I pull this up, let's go too far with it. And that's what it does when I got it at 100. And then I can pull it down based on what I want. So double check that your strength isn't at 0 or something.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good.
And then if you still have a problem with it, bring that back up on Wednesday.
Sure.
Okay. What was the other question?
Next one I have was, so the picture that I brought in, instead of where the Wells Fargo buildings was, it's a building in Chicago. I brought it, it's a new layer.
Okay.
And what I was really trying to do was trying to, I guess, import it and kind of skew the image to make it more perspective.
Sure.
Not only that, use like the selection tool, I think the Polygon one, and edit it out to make it look more realistic. But I was able to select the part of the building that I wanted. I just wasn't able to cut it out like I did for the Wells Fargo building.
Okay, so one of your questions is about skewing it, correct?
I mean, no, I know how to kind of the free transform, right, and then just hold the shift one, I think, or
it's a little different because if this is getting a little head, but I still want to answer it. If I'm going to put these buildings in some kind of different perspective, I'm just going to make a crappy selection here. And let's take one that's simpler. Actually, let's take this one. Let's say I'm taking this. And the perspective is going to change. And I'm going to put it back somewhere. So I'm going to go Command C, Command V. Then I'm going to move it. Okay, so now my perspective is going to change a little bit. I'm going to exaggerate this, but and I'm going to make it. So if I go up here to edit, and don't worry too much about this, everybody, because I'm going to go over this in a little bit later, okay? And I'm going to go right here to transform. So edit, what am I doing? I'm editing this image, okay? I'm always trying to connect, because Photoshop can feel a little scattered as far as how they assemble their tools to me. So, you know, you're editing something. So this thing is under edit, okay? So I'm going to go distort, okay? And what that's going to do is just let me move this however I want to move it. And then if I was going to go further with that, I might go, well, the perspective on the other side, this side, is a little different. So I'm going to go Command X, Command V. I'm going to pop it back over here. And then I'm going to use that same tool to go edit, transform, distort, to pop this, and let's say that, and I know this is going way too far, but let's say the perspective was that different. And now I've got the building in a different perspective. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Actually would have been helpful in my case.
And then living with those tools, just so you know, and again, you guys have to remember this, I'm jumping forward a little bit. Transform, and then I can go scale, I can go rotate, and skew. Skew is this. Okay. And then you've got warp, and that's going to give me some other options where I can really shape it if I want. and you know, so on and so forth, right? We'll get into those pretty quickly, okay? That's one of the tools that people use a lot for what I was just saying about, see, now I'm getting a Frank Gehry building, right?
Right.
If I want to change that and warp it and do something interesting with it. And that's kind of like doing this is kind of the start of sort of photo bashing. Now I could come in here and I could, you know, start putting some foliage down around here to hide the bottom so I don't have to make it transition into the bottom. You know, maybe I take this whole building out and put a lake here. I don't know, whatever, right? And I'll probably do a demo on that once we start to get a little handle on it. I'll do just a quick demo on that. Was there another question?
Yeah, the last question I had was, how would I save it as a PDF? Because I just took a screenshot. I was trying to save it as a, I think the option was a JPEG, but it just saved the original picture, like not everything I had done on it.
Oops, hang on. I just flattened it, but oh well. It should be, here it is, Photoshop PDF. You see that?
Oh, okay, I see.
But I did a save as, okay? I don't think it comes up under save. Let's see. Actually, this is already saved. Let's try something. Let's go save. Oh, it does have Photoshop PDF right there.
Okay.
Okay,
Sounds
so
good.
if you already have the thing saved, you're gonna have to go to save as to get that selection or to get that option again. Okay.
Okay.
Any
Thank
other
you.
questions?
No, that was all. Thanks.
Okay, good job. All right, that's the ones that I have. Okay. Give me 2 seconds again, you guys, and I'm gonna go over this next thing. Or actually, I want to do two things. I want to see if there's any open questions left, and then I'm going to show you something different. Hang on.
是叫你把声音关了，妈妈在上课了。好了，你要么到那个 Augustine 的 room 去。
Gloria, your mic is on.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
Okay. All right. Did you guys get, I gave you guys a photo of a camera on Canvas. Did you guys get that?
Yes.
Okay. So here's what we're going to do. Oh, by the way, is there any other open questions on this?
I have a quick question.
Sure.
If you did not share my part of the project, does that mean you didn't receive it?
Yes.
So I submitted it Sunday night and it actually states that you saw it.
How does it say that?
Or let me see, let me go back onto it. It says you and another classmate.
I might have looked in the folder. I don't know. I mean, I'd actually prefer it if it was say if I downloaded it. I'm going to delete these. Okay, there's that. Wait a minute, let me see something. Yeah, no, these aren't them. What's this one? We don't have that one. Okay.
So should I just resubmit it?
Yeah, just throw it in there.
Okay. And then
Because that way I'll know you're throwing it in there correctly and all that.
okay, and then the only issue I had was with cloning, but I think I kind of understood it after you went through it with everyone else. I
Okay.
don't know if you still want to share it. Okay.
Yeah, I want to see it. Just drag and drop it in there. And again, you guys, make sure that you're that you're signed into Google. Otherwise, it won't let you do anything. Any other questions? Everybody's is clear, fairly clear.
I have a question. When we save it as a JPEG, it asks what image quality you want. Is there a certain one you want?
I would
us
go to
use?
max.
Max? Okay.
I don't know why I wouldn't want it at maximum. I mean, it could be a file size thing, but I mean, they're not usually going to be that big anyway if it's not a giant file. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So, and yeah, I guess it just gives you more control. Like Photoshop has a lot of control. And another thing, when we get to our first like actual project, right now we're doing exercises. There's going to be things like throughout, like when you're doing careers and things. I don't, if it's just an effect, like there was this poster that came out from one of the Batman movies, and it was him standing in front of a building, and the building's kind of going up in perspective, and the top of the building's on fire, right? And somebody was talking about that, and I go, well, I know a bunch of different ways I would do that, but the first thing I would do is just go on YouTube and go, just type that in, Batman fire Photoshop effect, and it'll probably come up, and somebody will have a tutorial on it. And the reason I say that is just because sometimes people have figured out like really interesting ways to do something like that, where they're going into a sub menu and doing this and doing that and doing this and the other thing. And it just sort of gets you a nice starting point a lot faster. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And don't do that in here necessarily. I don't want people going over to YouTube because that can actually screw you all up. I'm just talking about later. Because later when you're working in the field, somebody's always got a gun to your head, and you got to get something done fast, and use whatever the hell you can. Okay. All right. Did you pop it in? There it is.
I did. So does that mean I put it in incorrectly because when I did, or I wasn't signed in or something?
Yeah, you probably put it in. You probably just put it in wrong. It's fine. I mean, this first time, I don't really care that much. I'm just trying to get everybody used to using that folder. Hang on. Why does this not let me download? Where is it? Hang on a minute. There it is. And then you've got it. And I just got another one from Cindy. Did you guys? And then yours, you called it Cityscape. Don't call it Cityscape. Call it your name.
Okay.
I don't have any way of knowing. I mean, I'm lucky it's showing me in here, but once I take it out of this folder, it won't hold that information anymore.
Got it.
And I want to make sure you guys get credit for everything. I have somebody right now who's talking to me about being in a class or whatever, and I can't prove it. I can't find anything that proves it. So I don't want to have that. I want to make sure that you guys get credit for what you're doing. Okay, so let's go to yours. Okay, so you pulled the building out. Did you use the clone tool anywhere?
So that's what I was having issues with.
Oh.
And my point wasn't on the correct because I was trying to clone the sky.
Yeah.
Every time I kept going over that building, the building would come back up like the street views, trees, and a part of another building would go right under that. So
Okay, you were sampling from the wrong spot.
Yeah, I think that's what it sounds like.
So let's just real quick go over this again. So here's that. I'm gonna go over here because there's a little more room. Look at that great purple on that hill, by the way. You see the crosshairs over here? Watch.
Yes.
See it now over here?
Oh.
See that crosshairs at the left?
Yeah.
That's telling me where it's cloning from. And look, I'm going over, I got to go back and start here and then maybe come over here and get rid of that. I'm starting to grab the building, which I don't want.
Yeah. Okay, I think that's what I was doing, and I think I was just directing it in the wrong direction because I started to get a building behind it.
And then, by the way, look, I'm grabbing this sky color right next to it. And see how it's not quite correct? That's a little better. That's actually a little better. That's usually why I come up here. And this is at 77. That's why it's doing it. Let's go all the way up to 100. If I start grabbing here, a lot of times it'll just be, this is actually fine. But when you're having, or if I'm coming up here and I want to pull some of this color up here, let's say I want to pull some of this up here. See how it's way too much?
Yes.
So if I drop this down, my opacity, and come up here and I can kind of build it. And see how it's nice and soft? It feels more natural. So you just got to think about that when you're building it up. But make sure that you're determining, hang on. Oops. Make sure you're determining to Photoshop what you want to clone from. Does that make sense?
Got it. Yes.
Okay. So that's just that option, mouse click, and that sets that point, and then you bring it over here and start painting with it. Okay.
Okay, got it.
Did you use the pen tool anywhere?
I did. Well, I originally, this is like the 4th time I actually did the project. I did it, the first time I did it, it was with the pen tool, but then I accidentally traced another part that I didn't need and I didn't know how to delete it. So I just exited the whole project and then redid it with the poly tool.
Good. I like that when you guys redo it.
Yeah.
It means you actually care about your work. What probably happened, so you could have Command Z out of that quite a ways.
Command D.
Command Z.
Z. Okay.
And again, if you needed to, because what you probably did is you had it fused onto your layer. You were probably working on the same layer, so it was flattened. So because it's not separated, you couldn't move it around or anything. You're going to move the whole image.
Got it.
Okay.
Okay.
But what you can do, if it's quite a few steps back, then open up your history palette and just go bup, 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 and just, or you can just, select all of them and delete them or whatever.
And then another question: How do you when you're using the pen tool and you're creating a path and you do something incorrect, how do you fully just get out of the path?
Okay, if I create a path, because paths are kind of weird. Here we go. That's a good question, by the way. Okay, so you want to get out of that, correct?
Yeah, because I kept hitting escape and it wasn't.
Yeah, it won't do that.
Yeah.
Okay, so like if I click here, I can just click on this on the board with my black arrow tool and it'll disappear. You see that? That makes sense?
Yes.
Okay, but it's not gone. So if I go over here to my paths palette, which lives under Windows, paths right there, but I've got it docked over here. There it is. You see it?
Yes.
Okay, so if I want to really get rid of, okay, this is what you're going to see in Photoshop and all these programs. There's a sameness of tool of whatever you want to call it, process or whatever, that runs across the programs. Okay, so one was what I just said, which is if I command click this little thumbnail, it reselects it. Okay, and we can do the same thing in layers. And if you notice, this palette looks just like layers, correct?
Correct.
So what I can do is select this and go right here, just like in layers, and I can hit the, I can either drag it in or I can select it and hit the trash can, and it's asked me, do I want to delete it? And that's called a work path, okay? I'm gonna go yes, and now it's actually gone.
Got it.
Okay. Now, one other thing, just quickly, I want to say about, okay, go ahead. Do you have any other questions?
No, that was the last one.
Okay, so let's say that you make a very complex selection and you don't have it on its own layer. So if I made a complex selection with this, and this isn't going to be complex, but let's say I made a really complex selection. I spent all my time and I got this thing selected, this building, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And I go, but I'm not cutting it out or something. Maybe I'm painting over it or something. So I need that selection. By the way, when you have a selection, it won't let you work outside of the selection. Okay. So if I take a brush and I want to paint this, it'll only let me paint inside that selection. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, or I can go up to select, inverse, and it goes the opposite. Only let me go outside of the selection. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And you know, the hotkeys right next to it, by the way, you guys. So I don't need to say the hotkeys because they're always over here to the right. Okay, so let's say I don't have, so if I put this and I went Command C, V, and now it's sitting in its own layer here. If you remember, I can go Command click that thumbnail and it'll reactivate the selection, correct?
Yes.
But what if I don't have that? And I go, I want to, but I don't want to, like, let's say I'm painting on this and then I'm going to deselect it and go do something else. But what if I'm going to go on and go back to that selection later, right? So if we go up under here, select, why? Because we're talking about a selection. And I go save selection. And it's going to give me this little dialog box. There's the name of your document. And I'm going to go name building. Building 1, maybe. And that's all I need to do. Okay. And I'm going to go, okay. And now if I deselect it later on, when I want it again, I go back up to select. Only now, instead of going save selection, I go load selection. And it'll give me the same dialog box. And there's a drop-down menu here. It's the only thing in there, so that's all it's going to be. And I just go okay, and it reactivates the selection. Does that make sense?
Yes.
That'll come in really handy when you get into complex things.
Okay.
Where is that selection saved? Where is that in case that you get lost or something?
No, because you've made it. If I sit here and I go, you guys are going to do it with this next exercise. Yeah, I make a complex selection. I don't want to have to go reselect that 2 hours later. I want to just go and drop my selection and go, and there it is again. So now I can paint in it and do whatever I'm doing. Does that make sense?
But yeah, but it is not really save it into some.
So it saves it. It saves the selection.
Right, but it doesn't save in a specific, like for example, in a new layer or something.
No, because all it's saving is the selection. That's
right.
it. It's not saving. It's just saving your little outline. That's it. Okay.
Okay.
It's not a physical thing. It's just going to go right back. Now again, but if I go later on and I go, yeah, you know what? I'm going to undo this and I'm going to move this whole thing over here. Well, now that's not good anymore because now I go select, load selection, building 1, and now it's in the wrong place. Okay. Because it's going to keep it right in that place. Does that make sense?
Okay. In the specific, you made the selection.
Yeah.
Okay. From the background.
Yeah, it's just a selection, so I can just go back to it because I don't want to keep reselecting things. And by the way, if I try and reselect a complex object again, I'm never going to get it exactly right. It's always going to be slightly different. Okay, does that make sense, you guys?
Yes.
Okay, a couple of things. Okay, I have one more, I think. Okay, where's who is this? This is Cindy. Where's Cindy at?
Hi, I'm right here.
Oh, there you are. Okay. You took this out. Where did that go?
I used the pen tool to just like color it white, I think.
Okay, I want these moved somewhere, and then you have to fill this back in or somewhere. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Did you understand the pen tool pretty well?
I think that was the
Oh, you
one
moved this building right here. I didn't see that. Go ahead.
that was the one I had like a little bit of trouble with because I didn't use that before.
The pen tool?
Yeah.
Yeah, the pen tool takes some practice. But did you kind of, I mean, it looks like you got it to work. Do you have any specific questions about it?
No, I think they were answered in the previous.
Okay. And did you use the clone tool anywhere?
Oh, dang it. So, okay, I used it to cover up the Wells Fargo sign, but I had 2 layers, so that was.
Okay, but you used it and it worked okay and you understood it, correct?
Yeah, the clone tool I've used before.
Okay. What's your major?
I'm not like decided yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, you have any other questions?
No.
Okay. Oh, one thing, by the way, you guys, right here, if you see that right there, that's your crop tool, or you can just go C. It'll give me this, and then I can just crop it, hit return, and you get a crop, correct?
Yes.
That's a pretty simple thing. I'm trying to show you a couple little simple things.
I have a quick
Yeah.
question. I know you mentioned save all your layers, like save your layer files.
Mhm.
What did you mean exactly by that? Like how?
Okay, so here's exactly what I mean. So let's say I get this photo and I'm using it as a starting point. I'm going to make it look like nighttime or whatever I'm going to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I go here and I make a new layer and I go, yes. And I go, whatever, this. Okay, so let's say it's a JPEG, okay? Once I create another layer, it's going to default, if you look now, to me go, and when I go save, it's going to default to a Photoshop file because I've created layers. You can't have layers in a JPEG. And there's other ones too. I don't know if PNGs can do, I think PNGs can do layers, but JPEGs can't do layers. Okay, so once I create a layer, it's going to save the JPEG, but what it's doing now is going, do you want me to save this Photoshop file? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I'm saying that is because if I go, nah, I just want to convert it back to a JPEG, but let's say that I sent off this JPEG, let's say I save as one as a JPEG and I send that to the client and I don't save the layered file. Here's what's going to happen. The client's going to come back after I did a bunch of work on this thing and go, you know, I don't really like that blue. That's too weird. I think it should be darker. And can you add some lights into it? And can you get rid of this? And can you do that? If I have all those layered files, I can just go in and turn things off, get rid of those, build new things in. If I have a JPEG, I'm screwed. It's all flattened. It's not editable anymore. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so you're saving it in the Photoshop, like the layers in the Photoshop, not
A
in
PSD file by nature, by default, is going to save all the layers. Does that make sense?
Okay. Kind of, yeah. I'm still trying to learn.
I know it's weird. If I go in and do something very complex, or not even complex, it's going to be very easy if they go, we don't like that blue, to go, well, I can go right here and go, okay, I'm gonna darken up that blue. And then I go save as a JPEG, and I'll save the PSD file and send it off to them, and they'll go, okay, that blue's too saturated. And I come and I go, okay, let's desaturate it. How about that? But if I have a flat file, I can't do that.
Yeah.
But so I have a flat file, here's what's going to happen. So let's flatten these layers. Now I can't, if I go, hey, I'm going to desaturate that sky, I'm desaturating the whole image. I have no control anymore. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Or if I want to lighten it, I'm lightening the whole image and so on and so forth. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So what you're doing is, once you start editing and you're creating all these layers, those are all editable forever. Okay. If I flatten everything, only the whole image is editable. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That makes sense, right?
Yeah, like you can't go to a specific thing that you want to fix.
Yes. I'm going to have to go through all this trouble to try and change that.
Yeah.
Or if I have the building on its own layer, I can just go, okay, you want a little warmer? I do that. I save as another JPEG. I save my PSD file. Never, ever, ever flatten a file. Okay. Save as is a flat file. Never lose your layered file. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Because that's just your That's what you're going to need. You're going to, anytime we're working on a project, and I don't give a damn where you are in the chain of command in a project. You are, people are going to have opinions. Somebody else is going to look at it. It just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're the president of the damn company. It's just how it is. Okay. And people like to make changes even when they shouldn't.
Yeah, perfectionist.
Hang on a sec. Okay. All right. Let's see. I just want to go through a couple of simple tools. I might not assign this new exercise until Wednesday because I'm going to need a little time to go over it with you guys because it's a lot more. It's not a lot. It's basically using these tools, but we're going to get more. How do we use them? Okay. But what I want to go over real quick today or right now, because I was hoping I'd have enough time to do it. Let's just grab one of these. Let's just use this one. Actually, let me see if I can find it. I'll use this. I just want to introduce you to another set. Okay, selections. We're going to keep doing selection. I'm going to show you different ways of doing that. But I want to get to these very basic tools that are fairly simple. Okay. And these live, what I'm going to talk about right now. So we just talked about crop. So that lives under edit because you're editing your image, right? Or it actually lives right here. I'm sorry. They live under your menu items, but I mean, when they're in the toolbar, I don't ever use that. But here's your crop tool. That made sense, correct?
Right.
Okay, so now what we're going to look at is under image, because now we're just talking about editing the image in a very simple way. So I'm going to go to adjustments. Okay, so we're adjusting the image. And I think it's 3 I want you to remember. I want you to remember brightness and contrast, levels, and hue saturation, which all live right here. Okay. Brightness and contrast, exactly what it says. Okay. What I like about these, and the reason I like to introduce them, they're slider tools. Okay. So they're pretty simple. I want to increase the contrast or decrease the contrast. I just slide it. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yes.
If I want to increase the brightness, slide it, bring it down. Okay. Cancel. Okay. Now let's go to the next one. If I want to go to levels, now how this works is this one right in the middle is your mid-tone. This one over here is your light color or light value. This is all value, this one. And this is your darks. Okay, so let's slide the darks over a little bit. And it's going to darken that up. Let's pull up our mid-tones, and here's our lights. So I was just doing this yesterday on something I posted on Instagram where I had to bring the levels down a little bit and get it a little richer looking. Okay. Does this make sense?
Yes. Yes.
So it's very simple, and you're going to use this a lot. You're going to use especially levels and especially hue saturation. Okay. So, I could deepen it up a little bit and deepen up the shadows a little bit, so on and so forth. Simple, right? And also what I like about, I don't know the contrast one, but like levels, it's just Command L. What is that? Okay. It's just Command L. And then the last one on this little set here is hue saturation. This is also going to be very important. Okay. It's very clear. Here's what I like about this. So here's my saturation. So I'll push it way too far. It just overly saturates the image. Or I can pull it all the way here and go all the way to black and white. And then I can go lighter or darker. Now, if you notice, lighter or darker is kind of tricky because it just lightens up the whole image and I don't really have any control over it. Okay. But and then right here, this is also a very interesting tool. Hang on, let me bring it back up. I do this, it won't make as much sense here, but I use this tool all the time, especially when I'm painting or something. Or making an image, I'll go, do I really like that color? And I can go right here where it says hue and it'll slide through the whole color spectrum. So I can go, do I like it better, more bluish? Do I like it better like that? Do I like it starting to go to a purple idea, and I can just get some ideas for color. Or like I said, like almost every time I take a picture of something, let's say to post online or scan something, I usually have to go in and juice the color a little bit right here. Just a hair, but it tends to, when you take a picture with your camera phone of like artwork or something, or even just a scene, it'll tend to kind of desaturate it a little bit, okay? But like if you notice, so let's look at this. Let's say that I go, I'm going to turn this image black and white, and I'm going to desaturate it. Now what I'm looking at is I go, that just feels, it doesn't feel like it has enough contrasty punch. Does that make sense? Yes? Okay. So now I'm going to go to my levels. And I'm going to go, can I dial in a nicer, let's go to my darks. Yeah, I can punch in my darks a little, pull these up, or I could even go to my contrast. I like it in here because I can kind of control it. And I can adjust my, shadow values and things like that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Let's go back.
Basically the same question that I did before. It is possible to apply this to a fragment of the picture of the image, right? It's the same process.
No, if I'm going to use, I can use this on anything. I can use it on an individual element. I can use it on any layer. I can use it on a select. Like if I select just this, let's say I select just this building.
Right.
While it's flat, and I go Command L. Remember I told you that it'll only work inside of the selection?
Right.
Okay, so look. Now if I do this, it's only going to work inside that selection.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay. So it can either be I'm working on an individual layer or I'm working on a selection. It's up to you. Okay.
Thank you.
Now I want to talk a little bit about this overlay thing because it's kind of weird. So in order for me to use overlays, I've got to have a layer over something, hence the name, correct? Now you can look up all the things on overlays, and it's right here, by the way. There's all your overlays, okay? This also lives, by the way, Photoshop has set the standard for most tools, okay? So if you notice, if you go into Procreate, they have the same overlays. If you go into Illustrator, it has the same overlays. A lot of programs that are designed for painting and image manipulation have the same kind of tool sets as they do in Photoshop, okay? So when you're learning Photoshop, it ain't a big leap to learn Procreate. Does that make sense? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so here's the weird thing about overlays. You can look up exactly what each one does. Oh, this one excludes the lightest value and does this. It doesn't really matter because it's all dependent on what's over it. So what the layer is that you're applying the overlay to is totally directly affected by what's underneath it and vice versa. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So I usually have to roll through them. I know what certain ones do because I use them all the time for certain things. And we'll get into that later because we'll do like a comic book color kind of exercise and it's super simple. But so again, let's do a simple one. I've got a layer here. I'm going to go, I want this to be some post-apocalyptic something. And I've got so let's grab our gradient tool right here. I've got it set up to go color to transparent. And I've got it set on this first one, which is just a regular gradient, which is what I use 99% of the time. And I'm going to go and drag that. Actually, I'm going to change the color. Hang on. I want to go to this crazy red. Oh, wait, right here. Let's go to this red. And I'm going to go here, and I'm going to just roll through this now. So let's go. And that one's not too bad. So I could go Command T and I could drag my gradient down a little bit. It's on proportion. I don't like that, but that's fine for now. And I just get a different vibe from it. Does that make sense? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, so this particular one happens to be darkened. Okay. Now, let's see if we can do this. Now let's take our hue saturation that we just talked about. And let's see if we can roll through this spectrum. See how I can just roll through the spectrum now and go, what do I like better? Like maybe I like it hyper saturated with that purple in there. It's kind of interesting. Or maybe I kind of like that a little more. And I can, okay, and let's say I go, I like that green, but it's so saturated. Then I can jump down here and go and just maybe dial it down or desaturate it a little bit. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go a little further here. So now we have our original. Let's go back to our overlays. By the way, you are going to see these overlays now everywhere you look. Like every movie poster, you're going to go, holy crap, that's just a bunch of overlays. Okay. Okay, so let's go, keep going. I don't know where that came from. That's weird. Let's keep rolling through this real quick. I don't know why I have this on here. Hang on, it's weird. Let's go, oh, here. So I'm just rolling through different overlays. Like I'm just seeing what I'm getting. That's kind of interesting. I mean, look at the difference. If I wanted to get late afternoon, I could start here and start dialing it in. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm going to keep rolling. And then eventually it's going to go back. I could desaturate that and start making it feel like a little stormier day. It's too intense right now, but could do that if I want to get a backlit sun flare effect. I like this one. It's just as subtle. And then now we're back to normal. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to find out that's a really handy tool. So now let's take a different thing. Let's take an image now. Let me find one real quick. Maybe if I was going to use this as a starting point. I'm going to take, I just want to find something that's textural. Let's just try this. That doesn't have enough color. Let's try something with more color in it. Yeah, we'll use this for now. Oop, I won't do that. I'm going to try two different things here. So now I just pulled an image in. And I'm going to use the same thing. And now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to roll through my overlays. I don't know why I keep getting this weird building in here. It's weird. And see how now it's combining with the image underneath using those same overlays, but it's going to be a completely different thing now because it's not just a solid color. Does that make sense?
That is interesting. Could you repeat that, please?
Yeah. So let's go. Okay. So right here's my overlays. I'm going to go back to normal. So now I can't see through it. And now I'm going to start dropping through these. So this, I could start painting into this and I could start making this look like a really jacked up, it's already looking like a jacked up city. Does that make sense? Like maybe it's been bombed or something. Does that make sense?
You have two images and you are combining those two.
Yeah, you're seeing through it. It's a transparent thing, but they affect each other based on color and what overlay you're using, okay? So let's just keep going through them. Kind of interesting. Look how it indicates like smoke right here. I could cut this background part out and drop it down. It would look like a distant horizon. That's screen, that's color dodge, lighter color, overlay, soft light. And by the way, this is a way, like if I was going to do something very quickly and go, hey, we want to have Berlin looking all bombed out. I'd go find an image of Berlin. I'd find some rubble like this and I'd start there and I'd paint into it. It just give me a quick starting point. Okay. Kind of interesting. I'd start cutting these things out, moving them around and as a starting point. Okay. Or it could just be a finished image. You guys are going to see, we'll start playing with it. Hard mix. That's really interesting. Subtract, divide, hue. Now you're not getting hardly any of it. Saturation, color. And then now it's just picking up the underlying color, but I'm not seeing any of the city. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so let's try something else. Because this is basically a monochromatic image, correct?
Right.
It's black and white, basically, right? Rubble tends to be black and white because everything's been blasted. So let's get something, let's do this. Let's go. Oh, I gotta go to images, hang on. By the way, when you're searching for images in Google, put them on a large, so you're getting larger image. So let's try this one. Because there's a little color in here. I'm going to shrink it a little bit. And let's go back to our overlays again. So it's going to start, and screen should probably get rid of the black, I think. That's kind of interesting. So I could move this somewhere where maybe if I wanted it there, and I could just eliminate this other part. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And let's say that I had a selection of that building already. I could just take that selection and get rid of everything outside of the building very easily. Okay. So let's keep going. There's screen. That's kind of nice. What if I wanted to make this look like Vegas and I want to put a big screen up there? I can make that shape and then I could do this overlay and drop her face in there so it looks like somebody on the screen and maybe put some type and it looks like an advertisement. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's keep going. That's a pretty nice one. You guys are seeing what I'm talking about, how every movie poster on the planet is using overlays. You guys know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Runner, LA and Blade Runner.
The problem with learning all this stuff in some cases, not in all cases, sometimes you just start going, Jesus, those things are just filtered. Like everything's just filtered, you know? Now, if I wanted to take advantage of all these other overlays that are picking up the black, I could just eliminate the black, right? If I go, well, I like some of these, but I don't want to pick up that black, then I could come in here with my pen tool or whatever and go, hang on. So let's do this. So now I've got that and I don't have to deal with that black anymore. It's going to give me more options. See what I mean?
Yeah.
And look at how it's affected. It likes that white on that particular overlay, right? Hang on. Just got an email from somebody. Hang on. So it likes that white. If I pull it over here, kind of likes that, starts to get, you know, likes that. Doesn't like the sky so much. See that?
Mm.
Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's just something you got to start playing with. And I want you guys to start playing with it. I'm not going to give you an assignment, but I want you to start playing with it. I mean, it's basically what you put over it is what you get out of it. Okay. And I actually like, it's not random, but the way I use it kind of is because I can know what all these things do, but if it's always going to change based on what I'm laying over something. And I like that little bit of randomness to it. I always like that. I like randomness in drawing and painting. And this is sort of one of those things I can use as a collaborator in Photoshop, because I want Photoshop to give me some ideas as if I was collaborating with somebody, and it can. Does that make sense? Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is, yeah.
So let me see. I got notes here. I want to make sure I'm getting all this. Okay, here's something else I want to talk about. And then I think that's it. So we just talked about using adjustments, brightness, contrast levels, and hue saturation, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Now we're going to talk a little bit about non-destructive editing. So if I go here and I go, I'm going to super saturate her. And then tomorrow I pull this file up and I go, holy smokes, that looks horrible, because it does. I'm stuck with it. Okay, that's it. Because I edited that image, and that's it, right? So in your layers palette, so what we've just talked about are two things in your layers palette: overlays. And now we're going to talk about this right here, this little round half white, half black thing. And what these are very common tools, three of which we just talked about. Okay. So now I'm going to go down here and go hue saturation. And look, it creates this, it's called an adjustment layer above the layer. Okay. And here's the same tools. This is the same tools. It's just in the adjustment menu. And now I'm going to go, I'm going to oversaturate her. I'm going to change the color, and I'm going to do something horrible. And I make this horrible mess. And I save it. And when I open this up tomorrow, I go, that is horrible. Okay. So what do? I just go up here. I click that adjustment layer. So let me click anything. Hang on. I click this adjustment layer, and I just either drag it into the trash can or just click the trash can. And I'm back to square one. Does that make sense?
Right.
Yeah.
Same thing right here. If I want to get the levels, adjust my levels here. And there it is. And if I make another one, if I go, okay, I want to do another one. And I go, let's go to brightness contrast, because we talked about that one. And I go, I want to make it much brighter, bunch of contrast. And again, I look at it the next day and I go, that's horrible. I just go here and I get rid of these things. And I'm back to normal. Does that make sense? All lives right here, both of these things. If I click a layer, there's my overlays. You have to have two layers at least, and the overlay you're applying to the one on top, because you're seeing through it. Okay. And then over here, if you want to adjust, it's right there. Okay. Later on next week, we'll talk about this one. You got other things here, but we won't get into that yet. And if you want to create a new layer, you just hit this little plus. Does that all make sense, you guys?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I just want you to play with this. Just go get some stuff and screw around with it. But I need you to do it because, I want to make sure you understand it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
And then we're going to start another little exercise, and I'll start the class. I'm going to go over, I want to talk to you guys about this a little bit on Wednesday to see if you had problems with it. And I'm going to give you another exercise on Wednesday where we'll start actually using these tools. And then by probably next week or the week after, we'll actually get into a more meaty project. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's cool? Everybody's understanding everything?
Yes, so we're not
Yes.
submitting nothing for Wednesday. We're
No.
just gonna play around with it and get comfortable with it. And then Wednesday we will get another assignment.
Yes, and I will give you, I will get this video up as quick as I can.
Okay.
Okay.
I have a class like right after this one, so I might have enough time to do it. It doesn't take me very long to edit them. So just have questions ready with this overlay, hue saturation, brightness, contrast, levels. And you can try the crop tool too. Okay?
Okie dokie.
All right, you guys. I'll see you on Wednesday. Oh, wait a minute. Let me screen grab the room one more time. I want to make sure I get anybody who's late. All right, you guys. I will see you on Wednesday.
Bye.
Bye, Professor.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
Bye.